Hi everyone, my name is Narobia. I'm from Baltimore. I am 43 years young and I am living with HIV. I was diagnosed at 24 from an intimate partner who chose not to disclose his HIV status for whatever reasons and purposes. And I wasn't educated based around HIV. Growing up, there wasn't much talks in the family about safe sex practices, HIV, pregnancy, and things like that. The only thing I can remember was when I started my menstrual cycle at 12 was, now you can become pregnant. That's it. That was my sex talk. So moving forward, when I met this man, I was diagnosed 2 years after meeting him with HIV. And that started my life journey with becoming an HIV advocate. When I was first diagnosed, though, like many, I did go through the ups and downs. You know, why me? What is this disease? Why is it here? How come it had to happen to me? I thought I was being safe enough to my knowledgeability. All of those things. We can't sit up here and just, keep beating ourselves up based around the shoulda, coulda, wouldas when it comes to adult therapy with one another. The only thing we can do is now try to figure out ways to cope with diagnosis. And one of those ways for me was, of course, you go through all of the emotions. Okay? Yes, you cry, you vent, you shout. Of course. The next thing is to figure out if there's anyone else living with HIV like you. And I was sitting home with all these pamphlets and these papers, and I'm scrambling to do everything on my bed. What is this stuff? And I came across an organization called Sisters Together in Reaching. And I called. A man answered the phone. And he was funny. He's a funny man. He said, hold up. First of all, before we even talk, I'm going to ask you a simple question. Are you living with HIV? And I was on the phone like, what? Like, what kind of question is that? I said, yeah. He said, okay, great. I said, great. He said, yeah. So he gave me the dates and everything to come in. I came in. I was greeted by him, and he showed me to this room. When I entered the room, there was a group of beautiful women that looked like me, different age groups, and they all were living with HIV. And at that moment, I felt like I had a safe space and a safe haven to vent at 24 because I was already a mom. I was in college, I was dealing with this guy. All of these things just started happening for me. And these women, they sat and they listened attentively. And I was like, no one's going to want me. I'm not going to never get married. I'm not going to have any more kids. What is this HIV stuff anyway? And why is it here? I had so many questions, you guys. I was in so much rage. And they listened to me. And each woman broke down their stories. They shared their downfalls and how they surpassed their HIV diagnosis and how they learned how to cope with HIV. And some women had gotten remarried. They had children. They have lives. And me being so young and unknowledgeable about HIV, I just couldn't see it. And so I continued to group. I continued to be around women who was living with HIV. I continued to deal with the organization itself. And I was asked by the main director to speak on World AIDS Day, which was in 2006, and I did it. And she hired me. And once I was hired there, that began my journey of becoming an HIV advocate. I got trained to be an HIV tester and counselor. I became a facilitator. I was a co-facilitator at first, and I became a facilitator to those who were living with HIV to teach them how to live their lives based around HIV and how to prevent infecting others, as well as a facilitator to those who weren't living with HIV for melanated black women to prevent HIV. And I was able to speak at churches and schools and organizations. I even helped run a youth group to help their peers and teach their peers about HIV. So for me, HIV was like that open door. Although I had these different emotions and assumptions and things that was going on in my head, there was something else that was like, you know what? I'm going to show you how you can cope and live with this illness by being around certain people who was living with this condition. And this is how you cope with HIV. You cannot be around individuals who are working on a low frequency. Man or woman, you have to realize that usually when something is stigmatized, it's out of fear. It's because some folks have actually experienced their loved ones who passed away in the early 80s and 90s from HIV, where it wasn't no resources, it wasn't research. The doctors was misinformed. They didn't know about HIV. And so it was so much misinformation that caused the HIV stigma that some of us still deal with today, because that's a traumatic and traumatizing event for many psychologically, that now we have to be out here on the forefront. When I say we, people who are living with HIV, such as myself, who choose to put their lifestyles out in the world to see that, oh, HIV isn't like that anymore. You can live a longer life. You can have families. You can still reproduce and have children. And you can still live a healthy lifestyle. And no one's just dying off what they considered back then like flies. No, we're not. We're not doing that anymore. Too much information, too much ongoing research. Too many doctors are on the forefront and have an understanding about this condition. And now you guys in the world have to get on the ballpark with HIV of today. Now, no one wants to be diagnosed with HIV, but at the same time, if you're ever diagnosed with HIV, or if you're living with HIV or newly diagnosed, do realize you still have a life to live. You still have a life to live. It doesn't matter. HIV, herpes, cancer, diabetes, whatever ailment that we each may go through in our lives, purpose and a reason, okay? We can't control that a lot of these illnesses and conditions are here. Well, some we can do, changing our diet and things like that. There's always an antidote in some way to heal something, but of course that's another topic to speak on. But there are ways to live with conditions. There are ways to live around diagnosis. You have to pick yourself up. You have to be able to pick yourself up and be ready to go on this life path and this life journey. Sitting around weeping and oh, year after year after year, it's not going to get you anywhere. And I didn't want to live like that. I was already a mom, okay? And now I have 2 more children. I have grandchildren now. I was married after diagnosis and everything. So a lot of things did happen for me after diagnosis. So many great things. I was even able to date HIV negative men who were awesome men. Okay? They were very good, decent folks that I came along in my life after diagnosis. And they stuck around for quite some time. You know, but again, relationships are for a reason, a season, or a lesson learned. So that's a whole nother story too. But HIV, just like any condition, you just have to put yourself in the right place and space and get the proper information, the proper dialogue, be around the right people, and you'll be fine. You'll be fine. There are many ways to cope with HIV. Yoga, walking, joining HIV positive groups, becoming an advocate, and much more. You'll be great.